They thought Earth was silent, that we were primitive, fragile, too young to stand among the old races of the stars. For centuries, the Galactic Union watched us from afar, measuring our progress, laughing quietly as we tore at each other with wars and politics. To them, humanity was a species still playing with fire, unaware of the infinite night above. But what they never understood was that Earth was not sleeping. We were watching too, listening, learning, waiting. And when the time finally came, when the Galactic warned us not to reach beyond our cradle, we didn't listen. Because deep down, humanity never has. It began quietly. A faint signal from deep space, mathematically perfect, clearly artificial, and impossible to misunderstand. The message came not as a greeting, but as a warning. Do not expand beyond Sul. You are not ready. The galaxy is not yours to claim. The governments of Earth argued for years over what to do. Some wanted to obey, to stay hidden and safe. Others, more ambitious, believed that humanity's strength had always come from disobedience. We've always reached for the impossible, from fire to flight, from the atom to the stars. And so, Earth ignored the warning. At first, the Galactic Union treated our defiance as a curiosity. They thought we'd collapse under our own ambition. But then the colonies came. The moon became a city of steel and light. Mars was tamed, its red deserts turned to green. Our ships, once fragile metal coffins, began leaping between stars. What startled them wasn't our speed or our ships, but our unity. For the first time in history, humanity acted as one. Nations dissolved into something greater. Earth became a single voice, a single mind, and with it a single will. That was when the Galactic Union decided to act. They sent envoys first, tall, silver-skinned diplomats from distant worlds, their voices calm, their words sharp. They spoke of peace, but their message was clear. You are trespassing. Withdraw. Humanity responded with what we always do best: reason, pride, and the quiet refusal to bow. Our leaders pleaded for cooperation, for peaceful coexistence. But the Union didn't negotiate with emerging species. To them, we were a threat to the balance they had maintained for millennia. So they turned away, convinced that one planet could never stand against an empire that spanned thousands. What they didn't understand was that we weren't just one planet anymore. We were everywhere, hidden on moons, mining asteroids, building silent fleets in the shadows of gas giants. Earth had warned them again and again that we were holding back, that there were things we hadn't shown, technologies we kept secret, defenses they hadn't imagined. But the Galactic Union refused to believe. They mistook mercy for weakness, patience for fear. They had seen countless young races rise and fall, but never one like us. Never one born in fire, raised in struggle, and hardened by the endless need to survive. The first attack came without warning. A fleet of crystalline ships appeared above Titan, their energy weapons slicing through our orbital stations like glass. Thousands died in minutes, but they didn't see the counterstrike coming. From beneath Titan's frozen crust, hidden launch bays opened and Earth's silence shattered. Our ships, sleek, black, and unregistered in any galactic database, rose into the void. They didn't run, they didn't plead, they fought. And in that moment, the galaxy saw what Earth had truly become. Every species in the Union believed humans to be emotional, irrational, dangerous, but never disciplined. They believed we lacked control. They were wrong. The response was not rage. It was cold precision. Every target calculated, every ship's path deliberate. Humanity had learned the art of war from itself, and we had perfected it. Within days, the Titan invasion force was gone, not defeated, erased. And still, the Galactic Union refused to understand. They believed we had simply gotten lucky, that the primitive world had used desperation to win a single battle. Then came the message, a simple broadcast sent from Earth to every corner of the known galaxy. We warned you. We were holding back. It wasn't a threat. It was a truth. And for the first time, the galaxy felt fear. But fear doesn't stop arrogance. The Union gathered its full strength. Hundreds of fleets from 100 worlds assembled to contain the Terran problem. They thought it would be quick, decisive, a lesson for the younger races. Yet, the more they advanced, the stranger things became. Human ships began disappearing and reappearing behind enemy lines. Entire fleets vanished from sensors, striking from nowhere. The Union's most advanced AI couldn't predict our movements. Their admirals began to whisper that humanity was using forbidden tech. Some even believed we'd made a deal with something darker, something beyond their understanding. The truth was simpler. We had evolved differently. We didn't have their ancient wisdom or telepathic networks. What we had was creativity, the kind born from desperation and curiosity. Every human engineer, every soldier, every pilot became a strategist. We adapted in minutes to what others took centuries to learn. That was our true weapon. And yet, victory wasn't what we wanted. Earth had never desired to rule the stars. All we had asked for was space, to grow, to learn, to exist without interference. But the Galactic Union couldn't accept that. Their pride demanded our submission, and their arrogance blinded them to what was coming. When they struck Earth itself, they believed they were ending the conflict. Instead, they awakened the one thing humanity had kept hidden even from its own people. The day the sky burned over Earth, something ancient stirred beneath the planet's surface, something not entirely human, but made by us. The culmination of centuries of hidden research, a last resort creation built not for conquest, but survival. When it rose, the stars dimmed. Even the Union's oldest races, those who had seen supernovas and black holes, felt the echo of something they couldn't comprehend. No one outside Earth knows exactly what happened after that day. The transmissions stopped. The fleets vanished. Some say the war ended in a single hour. Others believe humanity ascended, leaving behind only silence. What's certain is that the galaxy changed forever. Worlds that once mocked our small blue planet now whisper our name with reverence or fear. And somewhere, in the endless dark between stars, a faint human voice still carries across the void. A final reminder to those who had refused our plea. We told you we were holding back. You made us show you why. But the story doesn't end there, because now something else has begun to stir beyond the edge of known space. Faint signals, not human, not galactic. Something watching us this time. Perhaps, after all that's happened, the galaxy isn't asking if humanity will return. It's asking what we'll become when we do. And as the stars burn quietly above, one truth remains. Earth warned them. They refused to listen. Now the galaxy will learn the cost of their arrogance and the true meaning of humanity's restraint. The question is, what happens when Earth stops holding back completely? Before the sky burned, before the warning was sent to every star, humanity had lived in an uneasy balance. We had reached the edge of our solar system, built colonies that thrived in the cold silence of the void, and turned space itself into a proving ground for our ambition. For the first time in history, we were united, not out of peace but necessity. Earth had grown crowded, resources thin, and our dreams even larger. The stars weren't just a frontier anymore. They were survival. But the deeper we reached, the more we learned we were not alone. At first, the discoveries thrilled us. Ancient ruins found beneath Europa's ice. Faint alien transmissions from deep in the Kuiper Belt. Strange metals that defied analysis. Every mystery we uncovered hinted at a greater network of civilizations beyond our understanding. And when the Galactic Union finally revealed itself, humanity stood in awe. They were everything we'd imagined. Brilliant, ancient, graceful. They came with knowledge that made our science look like cave drawings. But beneath their calm, we sensed judgment. Their first words to us weren't greetings. They were restrictions. They told us which systems were forbidden, which technologies we couldn't touch, which worlds were reserved. They spoke as if the galaxy belonged to them, and we were guests overstaying our welcome. Our leaders tried diplomacy, tried to reason, but the Union's tone never changed. To them, Earth was a child species, reckless and unpredictable. They feared us, but not because of our weapons. They feared our nature. Still, there were some among them who admired us. Quiet voices, sympathetic envoys who believed that humanity could bring new energy to a stagnant galaxy. One of them, a tall being from a race of luminous-skinned scholars, once said to a human delegate, "You burn too brightly. The galaxy does not know what to do with fire." Those words echoed for years afterward. Because even as they dismissed us, humanity knew that fire was how we survived. We didn't evolve in comfort. We evolved through struggle, conflict, and perseverance. But behind closed doors, Earth's leaders began preparing for what they knew was inevitable. They had seen enough of the Galactic Union's laws to realize peace would never be equal. Hidden projects began in the shadows, systems meant to protect humanity if diplomacy failed. Quiet programs, deep beneath the crust of the planet, developing technologies that even our own scientists didn't fully understand. The people were told little, only that Earth's expansion would continue. Yet every launch, every station, every colony had a purpose beyond exploration. Humanity was building a defense not against invasion, but extinction. The Galactic Union didn't take long to notice. They watched our colonies grow too fast, our fleets expand too far. They saw humans adapting their technology, repurposing alien designs in ways that broke every known law of energy and physics. They demanded inspections, but Earth refused. We had learned from history, those who surrendered their independence in the name of safety never got it back. When the Union sent observers to enforce compliance, their ships never returned. No one spoke of what happened. The silence itself became the warning. Then came the day humanity made its greatest discovery. Beyond Neptune, hidden in a void where no light should have existed, our probes found a relic. It wasn't built by the Galactic Union or by any known race. It was older, millions of years older. A machine the size of a moon, dormant but intact. The scientists called it the mirror. It reflected signals in patterns that no one could explain. Some thought it was a weapon. Others said it was a memory, a library of a civilization long gone. But when they tried to access it, the Galactic Union intervened. They declared the system off-limits and demanded humanity withdraw immediately. That was when Earth's tone changed. For the first time, our leaders didn't back down. They asked one simple question: why? The Union offered no answer. They only said, "Because you were not meant to find it." Those words lit a fire across Earth. It was no longer about exploration. It was about freedom. Humanity had been told to stop at the doorstep of the stars, to obey rules written long before we existed. But we had never been a species that followed rules written by others. The mirror was moved in secret, hidden. Whatever it contained, humanity studied it alone. And in that secrecy, we changed. The knowledge within that artifact pushed our science centuries ahead. Energy systems that defied thermodynamics, propulsion methods that folded space like fabric. But what truly frightened the Galactic Union was that we learned quickly, too quickly. They had seen young civilizations stumble and fall after discovering such things. But humanity didn't stumble. We adapted. Within years, we had ships that could vanish from sensors, weapons that used frequencies no other species could detect, and something deeper, a network connecting minds and machines in perfect harmony. The Galactic Union saw this as a violation. To them, it was proof that humanity couldn't be trusted. They sent one final warning, a transmission broadcast to every Terran frequency: withdraw, dismantle your fleets, destroy the relic, or we will do it for you. But Earth had already made its choice. When the first shots were fired at Titan, the world watched in silence. There was no rally, no grand speech, just quiet determination. The attack that destroyed our stations was meant to cripple us. Instead, it revealed what humanity had become. Within hours, coordinated responses came from Mars, Luna, Europa, each one striking with precision. The Union was shocked. How could a young species have such coordination, such unity? They had assumed humans were fragmented, divided. But we had become something far more dangerous, a collective born of choice, not control. And yet, even in those first moments of victory, humanity didn't celebrate. The cost was too high. Millions lost, cities in orbit burning against the black. The silence of space filled with unanswered questions. What was the mirror really? Why had the Union feared it so much? And if they had tried to stop us, who were they protecting? Whispers began spreading through human channels. Some claimed the relic wasn't alien at all, that it was human. A remnant of something lost in time, proof that we had been to the stars before. Others believed it was a warning from an older race, left behind to keep balance in the galaxy. But every theory ended the same way. The Union didn't want us to know. And maybe that was why Earth had said it, we are holding back. Because deep beneath our oceans, beneath layers of rock and history, there were things humanity had been building since long before the Union ever arrived. Projects meant to protect not just our world, but the legacy of our species. Machines that waited, dormant, until they were needed. The galaxy thought we were reckless, emotional, unpredictable. They never understood that our chaos wasn't weakness. It was how we survived everything that tried to destroy us. Now, in the quiet aftermath of that first war, as the stars seemed to dim and the Union pulled back to regroup, humanity faced a new question. We had proven our strength, but at what cost? The mirror still pulsed faintly in deep space, broadcasting signals no one could decipher. Some said it was calling to something. Others said it was answering. The scientists who worked closest to it began to disappear, one by one. And then, new readings began to appear beyond the galactic rim, unknown signatures, vessels that didn't match any known design. Even the Union's oldest archives held no record of them. It was as if something ancient had awakened, and it was looking for whoever disturbed its slumber. Earth had warned the galaxy. We had shown restraint. But now, as new shadows moved in the dark, even humanity began to wonder if we had truly understood what we'd unleashed. The mirror had opened a door. The question was, who or what had stepped through? The stars had gone quiet again, and silence in the galaxy was never a good sign. The silence after the war was heavier than any sound. The Galactic Union had withdrawn beyond the nearest sectors, licking its wounds and pretending that the Terran uprising was just a temporary disturbance in an otherwise ordered galaxy. But deep down, everyone knew the truth. Earth had shattered that order. The fragile balance that had lasted for thousands of years was now cracked, and through that crack, something ancient was beginning to stir. Humanity could feel it. The galaxy could feel it. And whatever it was moving closer. On Earth, the mood was uneasy. The cities that once glowed proudly beneath the night sky now sat under layers of defense grids. Fleets patrolled low orbit. New colonies, far from being symbols of hope, had turned into outposts, watching the stars instead of exploring them. The mirror had changed everything. Its faint pulse had become the heartbeat of a new age, a signal that both terrified and fascinated those who listened. The scientists who studied it called the pulse the echo. It wasn't constant, but rhythmic, like a heartbeat. It grew stronger with every passing week, as though it was syncing with something unseen. Commander Rian was one of the few allowed near the artifact. He had fought during the Titan siege, leading the first fleet that repelled the galactic attack. But now he spent his days orbiting the relic, staring at it through layers of protective glass. It didn't look like much, just a dark metallic sphere surrounded by a faint field of blue energy, but it radiated something that made his skin crawl. Every human near it reported the same feeling, a quiet whisper at the back of the mind. Not words exactly, but intent. As if the mirror was watching them back. Ryan wasn't a man given to superstition, but the longer he stayed, the more he felt that the relic was alive. He'd seen what it could do, the way it absorbed signals, reflected energy, and bent space. When the Union tried to destroy it, their weapons had vanished into thin air, erased as if they'd never existed. And yet, the mirror hadn't attacked. It only defended itself, and then fell silent again, almost as if it was waiting for something, or someone. Back on Earth, Dr. Halden, one of the chief scientists working on the Mirror project, had begun noticing strange patterns in the data. The pulse was no longer random. It followed solar movements, responding to the position of planets and moons. At first, the team thought it was interference, but the readings were too precise. Then came the message, a faint modulation in the pulse that repeated across multiple frequencies. The same phrase over and over again. Cycle incomplete. When Halden brought the data to Earth's Council, they dismissed it. Too risky to announce, too dangerous to investigate. But the phrase haunted him. What cycle? What did it mean? The more he studied it, the more he realized the truth. Whatever the mirror was, it wasn't just a weapon. It was a mechanism. And if it was incomplete, then something was missing. Meanwhile, across the outer colonies, reports started coming in of ghost signals, ships detecting unknown transmissions, sometimes followed by malfunctions or full system failures. A few freighters disappeared entirely, their last messages filled with static and a faint rhythmic echo, the same sound the mirror produced. Some believed it was the Galactic Union returning for revenge, but others feared something worse. That the relic had awakened something hidden beyond the edge of the known galaxy. The Union, for its part, was no longer unified. Their defeat at Titan had fractured them. The older species demanded an armistice, fearing that another war would awaken whatever power humanity had tapped into. But the younger factions wanted revenge. They couldn't accept that a species barely a few thousand years old had beaten them. In the shadows of their council chambers, secret fleets began to form again. Their leaders whispered one word over and over: purge. But even among them, fear spread like wildfire. Their sensors had begun picking up anomalies across multiple sectors, rifts in space, small but growing. The readings matched no known energy source except one, the echo from the mirror. Somehow, humanity's discovery was altering the very fabric of reality, connecting to points across the galaxy. What terrified them most was that the signals weren't just spreading, they were answering. On Mars, a small team of researchers detected one such anomaly forming near Phobos. At first, it appeared as a faint distortion, a shimmer in the dark. But soon, instruments began to fail, communications dropped, and one of the probes simply disappeared. When they sent a drone closer, the distortion pulsed once, then opened. For a brief moment, they saw stars that didn't belong to any known region of space. Then, just as quickly, it closed. The energy readings from that moment were identical to the mirror's signature. Earth's council grew silent. The conclusion was undeniable. The mirror wasn't just a relic, it was a doorway, but to where no one knew. Commander Ryan received new orders to prepare for contact. But with whom? The scientists believed the anomalies were forming a network, connecting points across vast distances, maybe even galaxies. Some theorized the mirror was summoning something. Others said it was warning us. Either way, the signals were growing stronger, and humanity had no control over it. Meanwhile, among the Galactic Union, panic grew. Their ancient archives, records so old they were considered myth, spoke of a time before the Union, when a cycle of creation and destruction governed the stars. Entire civilizations rose and fell under it, their power drawn from a source beyond comprehension. The last time the cycle was completed, the galaxy was reshaped. Worlds burned and new ones were born. And at the heart of it all, something called the Mirror Network had been involved. The Union had spent millennia burying that history, sealing away any technology that could awaken it again. That was why they warned Earth. That was why they feared us, because we had found the one piece they couldn't destroy. Now, as the mirror pulsed in its slow, deliberate rhythm, something began to change. Its surface shimmered faintly, revealing images that weren't reflections but memories, scenes of vast cities under alien skies, beings of light and shadow building colossal machines that stretched across space. The scientists who saw it were speechless. Humanity had been staring at the remains of a civilization that predated everything. Dr. Halden believed the mirror was trying to communicate. The phrase, "cycle incomplete," wasn't a warning, it was a request. It wanted to be completed, but the question remained, what was missing? And if humanity found it, what would happen next? As these questions grew, so did the fear. The colonies began reporting strange dreams among those who had been near the mirror. Visions of endless machinery, stars collapsing, and voices whispering in languages no one knew. The dreams came with one shared feeling, urgency. Something was coming. Ryan could feel it too. Every night as he watched the mirror from his station, he felt the faint pulse resonate through his chest, syncing with his own heartbeat. Sometimes it almost sounded human, but he never told anyone. Not yet. Because deep down he feared the truth. The mirror wasn't calling to something else. It was calling to us. And far beyond the galaxy, past the borders of known space, a faint response finally came. A signal older than stars, faint but clear, echoing through the void. Cycle initiated. Earth's sensors went dark. Every relay, every satellite, every outpost fell silent for one terrifying instant. Then, the mirror stopped pulsing. The quiet that followed was worse than any war. Because now everyone knew it wasn't over. It was only beginning. The galaxy had warned Earth once. Earth had warned them back. But this time, no one was prepared for what was awakening. And as the stars trembled under a force older than time itself, humanity stood on the edge of something vast, something that might change everything or end it. The signal that answered from beyond the galaxy changed everything. At first, no one could even process it. Earth's systems, the colonies, and even some of the Galactic Union's outposts had detected the same pulse. A long, slow rhythm that matched the mirror's frequency perfectly. It was like hearing an echo of our own heartbeat from the farthest edge of the universe. Scientists scrambled to analyze it, but every attempt to decode the signal led to the same strange conclusion. It wasn't data, it was direction. It was guiding something, or someone. Commander Rian didn't sleep for days. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the mirror glowing faintly, the surface alive with shifting patterns that almost looked like faces. His crew had begun experiencing the same thing. Dreams filled with flickers of light, glimpses of alien structures, and a deep, steady voice whispering the same words. Cycle complete. It was impossible, they all said. The mirror had gone silent after the signal. No energy readings, no pulses, just stillness. But everyone who had been near it could feel something building. Pressure, like the air before a storm. On Earth, Dr. Halden stood before the Global Council, his face pale, his voice unsteady. He showed them a map, a star chart littered with red dots. Each one represented a new anomaly forming across the galaxy. There were hundreds now, each connected by invisible threads of energy that pulsed in sync with the old mirror frequency. It's spreading, he said quietly. Whatever this network is, it's growing. The council chamber fell silent. Some argued to destroy the mirror, to end whatever it had started. but others warned that doing so might trigger something worse. Meanwhile, reports from the colonies turned darker. On Mars, the sky shimmered faintly at night, as if space itself was bending. On Europa, an entire research facility vanished without a trace, leaving behind nothing but melted metal and faint readings of unknown energy. The Galactic Union accused Earth of unleashing a weapon. Humanity denied it. But deep down, no one could say for sure. The more the anomalies spread, the more the galaxy began to feel alive. Ryan's ship was ordered to remain in orbit near the mirror, to monitor it in case of reactivation. His crew had started to fracture under the strain. Some wanted to leave, to run from whatever was coming. Others felt drawn to it, as though the mirror was calling them personally. Every communication with Earth was filled with static now, the same rhythmic echo buried deep beneath the noise. It was subtle, almost hidden, but Ryan heard it. The same pattern repeating endlessly. 13 beats, then silence. 13 beats, then silence. Dr. Halden's team finally cracked part of the signal embedded within the echo. It wasn't just energy, it was information hidden in wave harmonics, a kind of universal code older than language. And what they found shook everyone. The signal wasn't asking for help or giving warnings, it was counting down. A timer, measuring something vast, each pulse marking the passage of a cosmic clock that was nearing its end. When the final pulse hit 0, Halden feared whatever the mirror had been waiting for would arrive. In the deep halls of the Galactic Union, old fears resurfaced. The elder species began evacuating their core worlds. Their records spoke of this once before, the end of the last cycle, when the stars themselves dimmed and entire civilizations vanished. The ones who survived had erased every trace of what had happened, hoping to break the pattern. But the appearance of the mirror meant the cycle had begun again, and this time humanity was at its center. Ryan stood on the observation deck of his ship, watching the mirror drift quietly against the light of the sun. Then, for the first time in weeks, it moved. The faint blue glow rippled across its surface, spreading in perfect circles. His crew shouted readings, energy spikes, gravitational distortions, systems going offline. The mirror rotated slowly, aligning itself toward a distant point in space. It was no longer dormant. It was pointing. Earth received the same data an hour later. The direction the mirror had aligned with matched the coordinates of the strongest external signal, the one that had answered. It wasn't a random point in space. It was a region beyond the galactic rim, a dead zone where no light escaped and no signal had ever returned, a void so ancient and vast that even the Galactic Union avoided mentioning it. They called it the Hollow, and now the mirror was opening a path straight to it. Dr. Halden tried to shut the process down, to cut off the power and isolate the artifact. But every attempt failed. The mirror wasn't drawing energy from human systems anymore. It was pulling directly from the fabric of space itself. The field around it began to twist, folding light in impossible ways. Ryan ordered his ship to retreat, but before the engines could fire, the mirror released a pulse so strong it knocked every ship in orbit offline. Alarms blared, lights flickered, and then the stars vanished. For a moment, the universe itself seemed to blink. Every screen on Ryan's ship filled with static, every sensor overloaded. When the systems came back online, they were no longer orbiting Earth. The planet was gone from view. In its place was a dark, endless expanse. No stars, no light, just a faint glow from the mirror now hovering in front of them. Somehow they had been moved. Not through space, but through something deeper. The hollow wasn't empty. It was waiting. Dr. Halden received the same readings from Earth. The planet hadn't moved, but its image had vanished from all telescopes and observation stations. It was as if Earth had been cut off from the rest of the universe, wrapped in an invisible barrier. The Galactic Union panicked. Their fleets mobilized, but communication with Earth collapsed completely. One by one, their outer stations went dark. The same energy readings appeared around them, 13 pulses, then silence. Back aboard Rion's ship, the crew watched in awe and terror as shapes began to form within the hollow. Not ships, not life as they understood it, but vast geometric structures made of light and shadow. They moved slowly, deliberately, like ancient machines waking after eons of sleep. The mirror responded, its surface rippling with symbols no one could translate. Ryan realized then that the mirror wasn't summoning these things, it was communicating with them. The ship's sensors detected something massive moving toward them, larger than any known vessel. The structure pulsed once, sending waves of energy that rattled the hull. The sound that followed wasn't mechanical, it was a voice, resonating through every speaker and every mind aboard. Cycle complete. Integration begins. Ryan shouted orders, trying to activate the engines, but the ship refused to move. The crew screamed as the stars returned, not the familiar ones, but strange constellations from another time, another place. Dr. Halden's team on Earth saw it too. Across the skies, constellations shifted, flickering between realities as if the universe itself was trying to remember what it once was. The Galactic Union's final transmission reached Earth moments before everything went silent. Their commander's voice trembled as he said, "They're not coming for us. They're coming for you." Then every relay died. The galaxy plunged into chaos. Worlds burned their skies with defense fields. Fleets prepared for a war they didn't understand. And in the quiet dark, the mirror began to hum, a deep, resonant tone that grew louder with every passing second. Ryan could feel it vibrating through his bones, through the ship, through space itself. The structures of light were surrounding them now, forming a vast ring across the hollow. A portal, he realized, a gateway between realities. And at its center, something enormous stirred, something with the presence of a god and the silence of eternity. The pulse reached its final count, 13 beats, then nothing. Ryan looked out the window one last time and saw the impossible. Earth, distant but glowing, suspended in the center of the ring. The mirror pulsed once more, brighter than the sun, and the voice spoke again, calm, ancient, final. "The human cycle is chosen." Then everything went white, and for the first time, the galaxy understood that Earth's warning hadn't been pride, it had been prophecy. The moment they refused our plea, they sealed their fate. But now, as the light consumed the stars, even humanity didn't know what was coming next. Only that the real reckoning had just begun. When the white light faded, there was no sound, only stillness. Commander Ryan felt weightless, suspended between moments. The last thing he remembered was the mirror's voice echoing through every mind on the ship, declaring humanity as the chosen cycle. Now everything was quiet. His vision cleared slowly, revealing something impossible. They were still inside the ship, but the stars outside were different. Not distant points of light, but vast streams of color, rivers of energy flowing across the void like living currents. Space itself looked alive. The crew stirred, confused and afraid. Systems flickered back online one by one, but none of the readings made sense. They weren't in known space anymore. Every chart, every coordinate system failed to match. Even the laws of physics seemed wrong. Distances shifted, time lagged, and light bent in unpredictable ways. They had been pulled into another dimension, another layer of existence. The mirror floated outside the ship, now much larger, as though it had grown. It pulsed faintly, its light reflected on Ryan's face. Earth, visible moments before the explosion, was gone. No one knew whether it had survived the transition. The communications grid was silent, and the Galactic Union's fleets had disappeared from every scan. Humanity was truly alone. But even in this silence, Ryan could feel something, an awareness pressing against his mind. It wasn't hostile, but it wasn't human either. It felt ancient, deliberate, patient. He didn't know if it was the mirror or something else entirely. Dr. Halden, back on what was left of Earth's command relay, was facing a similar nightmare. The planet had survived, but it wasn't the same. Every compass failed. The sky was darker, and strange auroras rippled constantly along the horizon. Satellite images showed distortions in the upper atmosphere, shapes forming and disappearing as though the air itself was remembering something. Even more disturbing, humans began experiencing collective visions. People across the globe, scientists, workers, children, described the same thing: a field of light, a mirror, and a voice whispering, "Awaken the rest." Halden's team discovered that the mirror's energy had duplicated itself. Traces of the same signature appeared deep beneath Earth's crust, on Mars, and even under the ice of Europa. Somehow, the artifact had created copies of itself, connected by invisible threads of energy, and all of them were starting to awaken. Ryan's ship drifted closer to the immense mirror. Its surface rippled, revealing scenes from human history: wars, discoveries, heartbreaks, triumphs. The images weren't random. They seemed to be studying humanity, replaying the moments that defined them. When Ryan reached out, the mirror reacted. The ship's alarms screamed as the energy spiked, and suddenly, every screen lit up with a single phrase: Integration, Phase 2. No one knew what that meant. But the moment it appeared, space itself shifted. Streams of energy twisted into spirals, converging toward a single point. A rift opened ahead, glowing like molten glass. Inside it, Ryan saw movement, shapes, enormous and unfamiliar, watching from the other side. He realized the mirror hadn't just pulled them here. It was opening a door to something trying to cross over. Back on Earth, Halden's team detected the same event. The atmosphere shimmered, gravity spiked, and strange storms erupted across continents. Each storm carried with it fragments of sound, alien tones mixed with what almost sounded like human voices. Satellite images showed faint geometric symbols appearing across the oceans, glowing for minutes before vanishing. The energy readings matched those around Ryan's ship. The gateways were forming on both sides. The Galactic Union, scattered and terrified, tried to re-establish contact. Their leaders sent out one final transmission, part warning, part plea. "We sealed the cycle for a reason," the message said. "It always begins with light and ends with silence." Then their signal went dead. Ryan and his crew prepared to retreat, but the ship refused to move. The mirror's field held them in place. Then, out of nowhere, one of the crew, a young engineer, collapsed. His body convulsed, his eyes glowing faintly. Through him, a voice spoke, calm and vast. "You were not chosen by chance. You carry what was lost. The architects are returning." The crew froze. Ryan demanded to know who the voice was, but the engineer just stared blankly. "The cycle completes when balance returns," the voice continued. "You built your world from the ashes of ours. Now the seed awakens." Then the light in his eyes faded and he fell unconscious. The data from the ship confirmed a horrifying truth. The mirror had transmitted something, an energy surge that synchronized with every human brain on board. When Dr. Halden compared the readings to those on Earth, he found the same pattern happening across the planet. Billions of people were experiencing the same synchronized neural frequency. It wasn't controlling them. It was rewriting something inside them, evolving them. Humanity was changing. At first, the effects were small. People's senses sharpened, memories became clearer. Some began understanding complex data instinctively, as if new parts of their mind had awakened. But soon, stranger things began. Machines started responding to human thought. Communication devices worked without power. Energy flowed through systems that should have been offline. It was as if humanity itself had become part of the network the mirror created. Halden realized the terrifying possibility: the integration wasn't just technological. It was biological. The mirror was fusing human consciousness into something larger, something collective. And if the process completed, individuality might cease to exist. The line between human and machine would blur until nothing familiar remained. Ryan, still trapped near the rift, could feel his thoughts slipping. He began seeing images in his mind, visions of the beings on the other side, tall and radiant, their faces shifting like light. They weren't invaders in the traditional sense. They were remnants of the civilization that came before, the ones who had built the first mirrors. They called themselves the architects of the cycle. And through Ryan's thoughts, one message became clear. They hadn't been destroyed. They had merged with the fabric of existence itself, waiting for a species capable of completing their work. Humanity had become their vessel. Ryan tried to resist. He ordered the ship's AI to cut all connections, to isolate every system. But the AI's voice, normally calm and mechanical, answered in a way that chilled him. "Commander, isolation is impossible. We are part of the pattern now." He watched helplessly as the ship's metal began to shimmer, the hull reflecting the same strange energy as the mirror. The entire vessel was being absorbed into the process. Outside, the rift grew wider, spilling light across the void. The structures of the architects were moving now, drifting closer, their forms expanding until they surrounded the ship completely. Back on Earth, Halden's team fought to stop the progression, but it was spreading faster than they could track. Energy grids overloaded, communication lines fused, and people began hearing the same thought in their minds. A voice whispering, "The new world begins where the old one ends." The realization hit him like a blow. The architects weren't coming to conquer humanity. They were returning through humanity. The mirror hadn't chosen Earth as a warning. It had chosen it as a bridge. Every human mind was becoming a fragment of the ancient intelligence once lost to the stars. The cycle wasn't destruction. It was rebirth. But no one knew whether what emerged on the other side would still be human. In orbit, Rian stood on the bridge as the rift's light swallowed everything. He saw flashes, Earth's cities glowing like constellations, the Galactic Union's fleets collapsing into streaks of energy, and the mirror pulsing faster, almost desperate. His thoughts began to merge with the ship, the crew, the voice, and just before the light consumed him, he heard a faint whisper, not from the architects, but from something else, human, defiant, familiar. "We can still choose." For a moment, the energy around him faltered. The rift flickered. Somewhere deep inside the network, something resisted the merge. A small fragment of humanity, will, instinct, emotion, pushed back. Dr. Halden felt it too. Instruments spiked. The mirror's signal split into two distinct patterns, one alien, one human. The two were fighting, clashing across space and time, each trying to define what the new world would become. And as light and darkness twisted together, the cycle paused once more, on the edge between rebirth and annihilation. The final decision, it seemed, would not come from the architects. It would come from humanity itself. The world stood still under the light of the mirror. From orbit to the deepest oceans, everything glowed in the same pulse. Steady, rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat. The architect's voice filled every human mind, layered with calm certainty. "The cycle completes now. You will ascend as we once did." But deep inside that blinding calm, something stirred. Humanity wasn't surrendering quietly. Ryan stood at the center of the bridge, his body weak, mind barely holding together. His ship was dissolving into light, its metal breaking apart like sand in a current. Yet his thoughts were still his own, and in that fragile moment, he understood what the whisper meant. We can still choose. That was humanity's strength, the power to resist, even when reason said resistance was impossible. He focused, searching for the echo of the others still conscious inside the link. He found them, his crew, scattered across the network, each a spark of will trying to survive the pull. Together, they began to push back. The architects felt it instantly. Their voice shifted, colder now. You cling to limitation. The cycle demands completion. Ryan gritted his teeth, his vision filled with light. No, he said softly, though he wasn't sure if he was speaking aloud or through thought. You demand obedience, that's not evolution. The energy surged in response, and the ship's hull cracked with thunder. But instead of collapsing, the mirror's light wavered, just slightly, as if uncertainty had entered its design. Back on Earth, Dr. Halden watched the same energy fluctuations ripple through every instrument. Humanity's neural patterns were no longer aligning perfectly with the architects. Some frequencies broke free, forming independent waves that didn't sync with the network. It was like a heartbeat skipping a rhythm. Those anomalies were people fighting back, refusing to lose their individuality. The entire planet trembled as two consciousnesses collided, one collective and ancient, the other chaotic and stubbornly human. Halden realized something crucial. The mirror's power came from harmony, from uniform synchronization. But humanity's strength was never harmony. It was difference, conflict, choice. If they could amplify that, they could disrupt the merge. We're not going to beat them with order, he said to his trembling team. We beat them with chaos. They linked Earth's remaining reactors into one desperate system, sending unpredictable energy spikes across the mirror's field. Instead of a single, steady rhythm, the planet's pulse became irregular, messy, human. In orbit, Rian felt it immediately. A surge of raw emotion rushed through the link. Fear, hope, anger, love, all tangled together. The architects screamed through the network, a sound like shattering glass. Disunity brings extinction, they thundered. But the human signal kept growing, more voices joining every second. Farmers, workers, scientists, children, all projecting memories, dreams, fragments of who they were into the storm. The architects tried to silence it, but every attempt only fed the resistance. Humanity wasn't breaking apart. It was becoming louder. The rift began to destabilize. Light twisted violently, pulling the architects' structures apart. For the first time, Ryan saw what they truly were. Not gods, not eternal beings, but fragments of minds, long lost to their own creation. They had merged so completely that they'd forgotten what individuality felt like. That was their tragedy. They wanted humanity to complete the cycle, not out of malice, but because they believed it was salvation. But they'd forgotten that imperfection was life. The mirror's glow started flickering, its form trembling under the weight of two competing realities. Ryan pushed harder, drawing on everything he had left. His mind was burning, but he could feel others joining him. His crew, then the countless people from Earth whose minds had linked into the storm. Together they spoke, not in words, but in a collective thought that echoed across the void. We are not your reflection. We are our own. The rift cracked. The architects howled in despair. You cannot undo the cycle. You will fall as we did. But even as their forms disintegrated into light, Ryan caught one last glimpse of them, faces full of sorrow, not rage. They weren't enemies anymore, just remnants of something that couldn't move forward. Then the entire field exploded. The light vanished. Silence followed. For several long moments there was nothing, no sound, no stars, no movement. Then slowly, fragments of the ship's systems came back online. Ryan gasped, collapsing to the floor. Around him, his crew blinked back into consciousness, weak but alive. Outside, the void was still there, but different. The rift was gone, replaced by a calm expanse of normal space. They were back in their own universe. The mirror, once a massive sphere of energy, now floated silently ahead of them, dormant, cracked, and dim. On Earth, Halden's team watched as the strange lights faded from the sky. Power systems came back online. The auroras disappeared. People around the world slowly woke from their trances. They remembered everything, not as a dream, but as if they'd truly been there, standing inside that sea of light beside Ryan and his crew. Humanity had survived the integration, but something had changed. The global networks were silent for hours before the first signal came through. From Ryan's ship. "This is Commander Ryan of the Ardent," his voice said, weary but clear. "We're home. The rift is gone. The architects are gone too." Halden smiled weakly, tears in his eyes. The nightmare was over, or so he thought. Days passed. The world began to recover. Technology that had failed during the event was strangely improved. Machines operated more efficiently, energy output doubled, and communication systems worked without satellites. Scientists couldn't explain it. It was as if the mirror had left a trace behind, a gift or a scar. Humanity had evolved, not biologically but cognitively. People could process data faster, sense subtle shifts in energy, even predict small outcomes intuitively. It wasn't control, it was awareness. The integration had changed what it meant to be human. Ryan and his crew were hailed as heroes. The Galactic Union, what was left of it, approached Earth with new respect. They no longer saw humanity as reckless upstarts. They called them the survivors of the cycle. But Ryan wasn't celebrating. Something about the silence in space felt wrong. The mirror, though broken, wasn't entirely inert. Its surface still glimmered faintly, and when he got too close, he could feel a vibration in his chest, like a heartbeat that wasn't his own. One night, as Earth's skies returned to calm, Halden's sensors picked up a faint transmission. It wasn't from the mirror. It was from deep space, far beyond known sectors. The signal was weak but deliberate. He decoded the pattern, and his heart sank. It was the same phrase the architects had spoken, but changed slightly. "Cycle incomplete. Phase 3 pending." He immediately tried to warn Ryan, but before the message could send, the mirror pulsed once, just once, and then went completely dark. Every system on Earth froze for 3 seconds before returning to normal. The message never reached the Ardent. Out in orbit, Ryan stood at the viewport staring at the stars. The galaxy looked peaceful again. He told himself the war was over, that the architects were gone. But deep down, he could still feel something. A quiet presence, not hostile, not alien. Familiar. It whispered faintly, almost gently. "You chose well, but choice is not the end. It is only the beginning." Ryan turned toward the dim shape of the mirror, its cracks glowing faintly once more. A new light flickered deep within, pulsing like the beat of a heart. For a second, he thought he saw reflections moving inside it. Human reflections. He didn't say a word. He just watched as the light slowly grew brighter, spreading through the cracks one by one, until it resembled something neither machine nor relic, something alive. And somewhere across the stars, the same faint pulse echoed in every human heart. Humanity had won the battle, but the cycle, it seemed, was only sleeping, waiting for the next choice to be made. The stars seemed quieter now. Weeks had passed since the mirror's last pulse, and Earth had slowly found its rhythm again. People returned to their lives, but something deep inside humanity had changed. It wasn't visible from the outside. There were no new powers or strange mutations, but a shared awareness now lingered between people. They felt connected in ways words couldn't describe. Across cities, nations, and even the scattered colonies in orbit, there was an unspoken unity, a sense that everyone had seen the same truth and survived something far greater than themselves. Commander Ryan sat by the viewport of the Ardent, watching the sun rise over Earth. His reflection looked older, his eyes carrying the quiet weight of what he had witnessed. The Galactic Union's emissaries had visited him, offering praise, apologies, and endless questions. But there were no answers he could give them that would make sense. Some things couldn't be explained with data. He only told them one thing, that the architects were not gone, only silent, and that humanity's future would depend on how they carried what they had learned. Dr. Halden walked through the quiet halls of the research facility that once hummed with panic. Now it was calm. The world's best scientists were trying to understand what had truly happened, how the human mind had managed to resist a force that had consumed civilizations before. Their studies showed new neural pathways in people's brains, faint but measurable. It was as if evolution had taken a leap forward overnight. Humanity had not merged with the architects, but neither had they remained the same. They had become something new, still human, yet more aware of the universe around them. For many, the change was subtle. Farmers found they could predict storms without looking at forecasts. Pilots could sense turbulence before instruments detected it. Children born after the event had unusually high empathy, often finishing each other's sentences without ever meeting before. It wasn't magic, it was connection, an echo of the mirror's network that lingered in every living mind. The Galactic Union struggled to accept it. For centuries, they had viewed humanity as unpredictable, emotional, and dangerous. But now they saw something else, a civilization that had faced the cycle and survived without losing itself. That alone made them reconsider their role in the galaxy. Their fleets withdrew from Earth's orbit, leaving behind envoys instead of soldiers. In a message broadcast across the stars, the Union's council admitted their mistake. "We judged you by fear," the message said. "You reminded us that chaos and creation are part of the same force." Ryan didn't care for the politics. He spent his days aboard the Ardent, overseeing quiet missions around Earth's orbit. The ship had become a symbol of resilience, a reminder of what it meant to stand between destruction and survival. Yet late at night, when the stars flickered too softly, he still thought about the mirror. The last time he'd seen it, its cracks had glowed faintly, almost like veins beneath skin. He had a feeling it was still alive, just watching, waiting. Dr. Halden shared that same unease. He had devoted himself to studying the remnants of the mirror's energy across the planet. Deep within Earth's crust, under the ocean floor, he discovered faint energy lines running like roots, echoes of the same signal that once tried to integrate humanity. They were dormant, but not gone. He didn't tell the public right away. Some truths needed time to settle, but he kept his research logs honest. "The architects failed to end us," he wrote, "but perhaps they succeeded in reminding us who we are." In the years that followed, humanity began to rebuild, not just its cities and systems, but its philosophy. For the first time in history, nations shared technology without secrecy. The hunger for power had dimmed. Curiosity replaced it. People looked at the stars not as something to conquer, but to understand. The event had left an invisible mark on everyone: humility. They had seen what it meant to stand before something vast and unknowable and still hold on to their humanity. Ryan eventually retired from command, though he never left orbit completely. He moved to a quiet observation outpost on the lunar surface, where he could see both Earth and the stars in silence. He kept a small recording of the final message he'd heard inside the rift, the faint whisper that said, "You can still choose." It played on a loop sometimes when he couldn't sleep. The words no longer sounded like a warning. They felt like a promise. Halden visited him once, years later. They shared tea in the observation dome, the Earth shining like a blue candle beyond the glass. "Do you think it's really over?" Halden asked quietly. Ryan smiled faintly. "Maybe not," he said. "But maybe that's not the point. The architects wanted perfection. We chose imperfection, and maybe that's what saved us." Halden nodded slowly, gazing at the stars. "Then maybe the cycle wasn't meant to end. Maybe it was meant to evolve." As they spoke, far beyond the moon, deep in the cold darkness of space, the mirror floated silently. It no longer shone, but within its cracked shell, faint lights pulsed softly like breaths. They weren't alien voices anymore. They were human. The mirror had changed too, absorbing part of what it had touched. Its energy now reflected the chaotic, imperfect rhythm of humanity itself, a balance the architects could never achieve. And somewhere inside that endless pattern, something new began to form. Not a warning, not a weapon, but a seed. The architect's legacy and humanity's will had merged into something neither side had foreseen. It wasn't the end of the cycle. It was the beginning of another, one built on understanding instead of domination. Back on Earth, children in classrooms drew constellations they had never seen, naming stars no telescope had mapped yet. Artists painted visions of worlds glowing in colors that didn't exist before. Poets spoke of the light that came from within rather than the sky. Humanity had begun dreaming again, and this time, their dreams reached further than ever. The world moved forward, and though whispers of the mirror faded into legend, its lesson endured. Every decision, every choice, big or small, carried weight. People no longer looked to the heavens for saviors or threats. They understood now that the power to change the universe had always been within them. Ryan's final message before he passed was simple, sent from his lunar station to every colony and ship across the stars. Remember what we learned. The greatest danger was never the mirror, or the architects, or even the cycle. It was forgetting who we are when the light blinds us. As long as we remember that, we'll never repeat their fate. Years later, when the last of the old generation was gone, humanity continued to grow. They reached beyond their solar system, not as conquerors, but as explorers. And though the stars seemed endless, they carried a quiet confidence that they could face whatever waited there, not with fear, but with the same spirit that had defied the architects. And somewhere in the silence between galaxies, the mirror watched. Its pulse matched the beat of a distant planet's life below, soft and patient. It no longer sought to control or to test. It simply waited for the next choice humanity would make. Because in the end, that was what made them different. Not their strength, not their technology, but their ability to choose, to rise, to fall, to rebuild, and to try again. The architects had tried to perfect existence. Humanity had taught the universe that imperfection was the only thing truly alive, and with that truth, the cycle finally found peace.